Dr. Jazz.
Thanks so much, Doug, that we managed to do that now. So I really appreciate it. You know, I've tried playing your tunes for a long time. I mean, I play, you know, like sometimes on jam sessions or when we meet with friends, like Brother Ty. I love that one. And
but I'm gonna give you a tip. It's never da 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 da. I have no song to da da da. That's not. It's do bit ba do bit da 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 do. If you play da da da, it don't sound so good.
Yeah,
I never
I know.
had a song with. I have some songs with that, but I usually put the triplet thing on it. Da da
Oh, yeah.
da. But I hate when somebody da 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 da. Oh,
Yeah. I know what you mean. I know what you mean. Yeah, just
it's like da 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 da. It's ba do bo do bo ba do bo do bo da. You know. But anyway,
no, but you know,
but you want to play? What was that, Brother Ty?
Yeah, Brother Ty. Yeah.
You play? That's great. That's great.
Yeah. You know, I transcribed it years ago, but probably wrong. But you know, at least by ears from some records, and I love the one, your version, what you sing on it. I love that one. The lyrics. My brother Tyrone is that's so cool.
I can send it via email if you want.
Yeah.
Sure, no problem.
Please. Yeah, but I wanted to ask you, like, you know, what's your process here when you wrote this stuff, or when you do write? You know, how do you start? Because it's many times it's so tricky rhythmically and metrically, yet it's so simple, if you know what I mean. And how is your process when writing a tune, let's say like this, or whatever composition?
That's kind of difficult to say because I've been composing since I was in high school, junior high school.
Oh, wow.
And I write from, I mean, whenever. I'm kind of a fanatic. I mean, the thing is, without music and poetry, my life would be zero. I'll say this. I don't have a religion because I believe in the big spirit and all religions, because it has this thing about a God, which is a male thing. It's not possible for me. And so from early childhood, being in a big family, I had to relate to the bee in Florida, the bees and the animals and the trees. And so all my life, all I did was poetry and music gave me something. And I gave up all religions because it had to do with a male. Patriarchy to me is not how the earth is a mother earth, right? Patriarchy, anything patriarchal to me is just unnatural. Because I came from my mother and I had my mother's milk. I hate to think about that milk from a guy, you know. So growing up in a patriarchal world, it's obvious that it's a lie. So I decided the only thing that would give me any solace was poetry, because poetry is not like, you know, like you write a sentence. Poetry has many different layers, and you can actually have an idea that you might be able to get it in poetry, and it might work for you and 5 people and nobody else, but it still works. But when you write something specific down, next thing you say, maybe it's not like that. But in music, I studied music for 6 years in senior and junior high school, theory and harmony and all that stuff. And the biggest school to me were the professional musicians, because when I grew up, there was really possibility to be a begleitung in a company.
A company. Yeah.
That was my aim. I never thought of being band leader. I wouldn't even want to be a band leader, because I only wanted to be the best accompanist possible in every category. But jazz was my aim, and I succeeded until it ran out. When the disco thing came, I couldn't see myself being a robot on the drums, which is really dumb, unfunky music. I mean, not funky at all, you know. And then when the rock jazz came, like it's rock jazz. I mean, I'm playing a funk beat with unfunky people. and a lot of boring 1,000 notes that makes no sense. So I say, well, look, if you ain't gonna funk me, I don't want to play with you. And you are jazz guys who don't know any funk and blues, so I'm out of the picture. I don't even want to hear it because long solos are boring most of the time, especially with the playing a rock beat and somebody's just masturbating on the instrument. I call it. But I'm not against. The thing is now, out of all of this, I don't blame the musicians because he's trying to make a living. But I slowly saw the impossibility for young people to be accomplished because I thought of being a band leader was not even until I was like 32 years old or something like this when I first came to Europe, and I came as a side man. I loved being a side man, being back there in the back, not being noticed. I didn't want a solo, but I loved playing and making all these great groups groove,
Yeah.
And in my day also, I was lucky because I'm from Florida where people's a dance culture. So when you played funk, people were dancing. I could take a funk lick off a good dancer and incorporate it in the music. When people stopped dancing, started doing a rah, rah, like a rally. I said, what the hell? And I'm playing a funk beat and people talking about rah, rah. Are they drunk or something? So, I mean, a lot of things just disappear. And so, I mean, the thing is, I was thrust into being anyway, that's just to give a little synopsis.
No, please, I'd love to hear that. Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned that, I studied poetry and translation, and I read this poem, The Woman, that you wrote. So it's kind of makes sense what you talk now about the patriarchal society. So and mother's milk.
Oh, you have one of my books?
Yeah. I have in the other room, like the red one, the small one.
This one?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, exactly. And I translated African American poetry, like Michael S. Harper and Amiri Baraka into Slovenian. And we, there's we did 25 poets into Slovenian.
This is another book.
Oh yeah, I don't have this one. Oh, okay.
Let me see. What year is this? I have to get my glasses still. What is? Let's see. This is 2010-11.
Oh wow, so that's quite recent.
And the latest one is this one.
Oh wow, okay.
And this one it's not poetry. It might have one poem in it. It's like short
stories. Oh wow, okay.
And commentary. This was done, it's not only a couple of years ago. 2019.
Oh wow, that's quite recent. Nice. So you still write poetry, actually, or?
Oh yeah. I still write because this is what it's like. Poetry, cooking, and heaven. Heaven means a woman.
Cooking. I'm also a chef. I cook every day. I love it.
I do too. Good. I see you have sweet basil there. Now they call it sweet rhythm,
Man, I love that club. It was amazing. It's like one of those places that unfortunately is gone. So for a long time now,
the place is still there. They just call it sweet rhythm.
Yeah, but
I don't know.
This one had some amazing concerts there and albums being recorded and. But just to go back to composition, I wanted to ask you. I guess Moves was for you the big thing that made you more recognized even in Europe. How did the thing with Moves happen actually with Mingus?
Well,
I have to ask you that because
what happened was I was playing with Mingus at the 5 spot. We were playing there 4 nights a week.
Oh man!
And we were on tour. We were doing the Newport Jazz Festivals all over the U.S. And so we were somewhere traveling, and I had a concert at Sound River Studio Rigby, and I was rehearsing like an 8-piece band or something, and I had it on cassette. And when I was on the road, I was checking what I'm going to do, and all this. So while I'm checking it, I heard this little knock on the door. We're in the hotel room. And I opened the door with me. She said, "What's that music?" I said, "Well, this is the music I'm preparing for Sam River. Give me 2 pieces for the band." I said, "Oh, shit." So I gave him 2 pieces, that one and another piece, and he picked Moves.
Oh, wow, man. It's incredible. Yeah, how was it like when it was played the first time, when you heard it by the band? How did it feel for you when you first time heard it played by the guys and you?
Well, actually, I had written that song in 1968 or 69.
Already? Oh, okay.
And I don't know if you ever heard of Dorothy Ashby, the great harp player, the #1 who I used to work with her. That was my favorite group in in Detroit. And so when I wrote the piece, I wrote the chords down and I asked her to kind of check it for me. So she checked it. She said, "Well, the chords are okay," but she just dressed it up a little bit. She said, "I just dressed it up a little bit." So we played it in the 60s. In the 60s with Kirk Lights, because he was in Detroit at the time. So I played it a few times, but I never played it. I didn't have any words to it. And it was called Rita's Moves, actually, for my girlfriend, who was this great dancer, who was with the American Dance Theater, great mathematician, and all this stuff. Beautiful woman. So it was Rita's Moves. And then I got married. And when I got married, my wife, I wrote the lyrics for her. And I asked her, I say, her name was Roseanne. I said, "Roseanne, I have this song called Rita's Moves. And since I wrote the lyrics, she said, "Well, why not call it Rita's Moves? You loved her, didn't you?" I said, "What a wife, man." So I said, "Okay, I can't say Rita, I just say Moves."
Smart move. It's a beautiful one. Yeah, it's amazing. It's you know how I guess you spread your name as a composer, right? That was a big step for you, or?
You mean Moves?
Yeah, this composition.
Oh yes, because when I came to Europe, the people when I traveled around, and I had a little group going on. People remembered me from that song, because in Europe it's a different attitude at that time anyway about music. Europe has become more commercialized, like America, which is a horrible thing. But at that time, people would ask me, "Are you the Doug Hammond who wrote that song?" And in Europe, people have a little bit more respect for composition and music, film directors rather than the stars. It's was a different attitude. I don't know. Now, I really feel uncomfortable that people really act like American commercial shit. That's the worst thing. But so in the sense that composition got me in a lot of places. People actually came to me because I was composing all the time.
Yeah.
And all the time I have stacks of music, and I never thought about it until somebody said, "Man, why don't you?" Poetry, the same thing. I just crazy guy. So that's what happened with Moves.
Yeah. Oh, Doug, can I ask you just to put your camera a little bit lower so that you're like, or like that's bad. That's perfect if you're like that.
Because I have a.
That's super, like that now.
I have a computer, but this is a tablet, which I'm more familiar with than the.
It's great. It's super now. Yeah.
Okay.
But I wanted to ask you, like, about the 60s, like, let's say mid-60s. You've done some incredible playing with some incredible people, from Mingus to, I've read you play and or not. Like, how did these stories happen? Sorry, you hear me?
Yeah, I heard you, but you were breaking up for a moment.
Sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to ask you, like, how was for you the scene, like in this late 60s, when you entered the scene as a young drummer, mid 60s, and you've played with all these amazing musicians, from Ornette to Sonny Rollins to Mingus to
actually,
James Blood Ulmer. Like,
I came from Florida. I came from Tampa, and when I came from Tampa, I went to Miami and played with some great players there. And when I was in Miami, I played with a group called the Five Royals. It was one of the most popular rhythm and blues band. And we played in the Peppermint Lounge 1 week before the Beatles showed up in Miami at the first time.
Oh, wow.
And I said, "Who are these strange guys with the first hair?" So it was a very famous group, Sam and Dave and stuff like that, and in Florida, and some great players in Florida, in Miami. But Dolphin Tony Castellano in Miami with 2 piano players, twins. One was kind of hippie style, the other one was like very straight, but they're twins and they both were killing piano players. They were kind of like mentors because they would kind of train me. At the same time, I got a chance to play with Lil Willie John, who wrote the guy who made Fever famous. So I played in Florida. Then from Florida, when I went to Detroit, because I was a fanatic. All I did was I practiced 8 to 10 hours a day in school. I cut all classes except music or history. Well, forget history's a joke. Mathematics, because I was a mathematician. I could go to any university I want for free because of my mathematics. But I asked to say, well, look, I make bombs. I mean, I only want to make music. And I had scholarships to go to any college in music. I said, well, I don't need to go to college because people who go to college don't play that good. Look, I tell you this, I avoid people from music institutions in my band. I don't want musicians from institutions because it's an institutionalized idea and they haven't done a good job. It's become too commercial. I'm not against the institutions, don't get me wrong, but I prefer musicians from the street. I mean, I don't mean musicians who play on the weekend on the street. I'm talking about the guys who make a living, hard, whatever it takes. I don't care what kind of music. Just the ones who really in there doing it. These are the ones I want to give work to. But I mean, so naturally, that's why I don't work so much. You know? But that's what happened. But the thing is, when I went to Detroit, my mentor in Florida told me, say, look, you go to Detroit to prepare for New York. And that's what I did. And when I got to Detroit, one of my first gigs was with a guy named James Jamerson. You ever heard of him?
Are you serious?
He heard me play it. He got me a gig with a guy named Lil Sonny with a blues band that I had for like 5 months, 3 months with him on the weekend. And he told me, don't go on the road with Motown. Leave that alone. Get your shit together and go to New York. Play the blues with me. James Jamerson.
Man, that's amazing. Wow.
So I was lucky, you know. And Leon Henderson, brother, was one of my best friends. And Joe Henderson, brother, he told me, man, Leon is better than me. So Leon and I were together. When I would write a song, I asked him, say, look, check the song and see how it fits the normal thing. He said, look, Doug, chords are strange, but they're not wrong. I said, what's the norm? He said, don't do that, because you don't want to get, if you learn the norm the way you are, fanatic like you are, you're going to become normal, boring.
Yeah.
So I just took that. So what can I say?
That's incredible. Yeah. And when did you decide to go to New York? What year was that?
Well, actually, I went to New York in 1968. That's when I played with Sonny Rollins and George Braith at the Village Gate for 1 week.
How did that gig happen?
Well, George Braith used to have a place called Muzak where all the musicians used to rehearse. And so I would go there because it was a place like after hours jam session. So he called me and said, yeah, man, Sonny Rollins is doing a rehearsal. Why don't you come down? So I came down and Sonny Rollins had a band. I noticed the guys playing with Sonny, they were playing like they were afraid of him, but they were good musicians. Sure. So one day, about a day or two later, George called me and said, Doug, come down early today. So I came down early, and Sonny Rollins was practicing on an alto, you know. And when I walked in, he had a 4-bar theme that he was playing, that he took that theme and played it for about 20 minutes, you know, turning it around. It was not like I never heard him play a chord change, but he turned that. It was amazing to see him in the process of doing this. Like, wow, creating around this 4-bar theme that expanded, but still it always came back, you know, like this. And I was just amazed. So George said, go play the drums. After a while, I said, no, so I went up and I slowly started, you know, just whatever he would do, I would, because I studied Sonny Rollins. He was my favorite, you know, so I started.
Sure, man, yeah.
So I was practicing on playing 4 against 5 and 4 against 5 and 5 against 4. I was practicing that when this in the spirit. So when he would play whatever he played, I could play what he's playing and then also add some stuff, you know. So we ended up playing for about, it had to be at least a half hour. And he said, Doug, I don't know many guys who can really play free. I was like, oh, wow. And he said after so when George came, he said, George, get the bass. So George could play, he know the bass. So, but he couldn't play the bass like a bass player. So that was good too, because we were not playing in time.
Yeah.
So after that, he asked me if I wanted to. I was living in the Bronx with a friend. He said, where do you live, dog? You know, so I said, well, I'm in the Bronx. Well, we're going that way. We'll give you a ride. So we talked and everything. Sonny's very gracious, man. So the next day he called me on the phone. Would you consider playing in my trio at the Village Gate? I said, well, I swallowed about 3 times. I said, yes, sir. So the rehearsal was not, I mean, I studied everything I had from him. So the rehearsal, it was like a free gig. It's the first improvisation, the only improvisational band that I really enjoyed. Because when he's improvising, he might go into something and come out, but it's not just some random 1,000 notes and, you know. And so we rehearsed, and George Braith, who's a saxophone player, he said, well, we're going into the Village Gate with this trio. I said, yes. And even Miles was there. That was something.
Really? Oh, man.
We came off the bandstand one time, one set, and Miles was just like a little section in the Village Gate, like a sort of bank, a bench with a table. So I set off, I'm sitting up, and it's like the crowd, you can't see you, you know, it's like this little special area. And I see this guy with his head down. So when he lifted his head, I said, oh, shit. Then I said, I didn't want to say Miles. I said, oh, I heard how you say it. Fuck you. I said, hi. Then he asked me, he said, how is it playing with Nuke? I said, you know, sometimes it's a little bumpy, but for the most part, it's nice. It's great. You know what he said to me in 1968? Nice to hear guys can play together again.
Oh, wow, man.
I was like, God damn, is it that bad? Again, you know? I said, okay, you know.
Man, that's, wow. That's incredible. Yeah, there are no one, of course, recorded those things, right? Like, yeah.
Maybe. Well, I mean, maybe so, but I mean, I have no.
Yeah. Oh, man, that would be so amazing.
Then at 68.
Yeah, sure.
And then I went right back to Detroit. And when I went to Detroit, after Detroit, being there, I said, okay, I've had enough of Detroit. I don't want to work now. So I went to one of the producers at Motown and asked him, look, I need a gig, man. What can I do? He said, well, you can have the job with Smokey Robinson and the Miracles as the drummer on salary. I said, okay, Smokey Robinson. I said, oh, I hadn't heard that name before. So my partner, James Brown, who's a drummer there in Detroit, I said, James, Smokey Robinson and the Miracles, can you prepare me for this funk thing, what they doing? He said, oh, sure, no problem, because it's a funk drummer. So then I asked him, I said, hey, man, you know, when I get there, I'm going to see how the ladies. I said, what do you mean ladies? I said, the Miracles. I said, man, I'm glad to tell the Miracles aren't ladies, they're some guys. I didn't even know. I hear the music. I didn't put together which tune was Smokey and all this. And he said, man, I'm glad you didn't say that, because these are real guys.
Oh, man. Shit.
That was a great gig. It was a great gig.
Oh, that's incredible. I didn't know that, but yeah, interesting.
And then I went to how I got to
other than this.
How I got to New York. When I'm in California, when I'm working with a group, and the guy came on the bandstand, used to tell jokes, came on the bandstand, he say, well, Papa, you're not smiling. I said, well, what's that got to do with it? Well, I said, well, because he would tell jokes. I mean, you hear the jokes so long, it's not funny anymore. So he said, I said, well, man, it takes a lot of muscles to smile. He said, well, I smile on my bandstand. I said, I work as a drummer. You want to give me $500 a night for acting fees? You can't tell me to smile. I play drums. That's the only thing I have to do. You can't tell me to smile. I'm not an actress. Plus, I quit. And I quit and I went to New York.
Wow. And how do you remember those first weeks in New York? Like, how did these connections with, you know,
well, the thing is,
Mingus happen and James Blood, yeah?
Well, Mingus, that was later. James Blood Ulmer we had made a deal with a group we had called Focus Nova. James Blood Ulmer had already gone to New York and gotten the job at Minton's Playhouse for 6 nights a week. Yeah. And wow. Bobby Battle was playing drums until I come. So they say, well, whenever you come, you got the gig. So when I left this band from California, I went to New York and I played at Men's Playhouse 6 nights a week for about a year.
Oh,
and I went there
man.
with my wife and her daughter. I mean, because I got married, I was stupid. I got married. Great wife, but I mean, I was stupid. But anyway, I said, I only go to New York working. I'm not going to go there and look for work. I'm going there working. And I did it. The first time I went and got a job, but I said, next time I go, I'm going working. And that's how it happened. So I went there and was working about a year, 6 nights a week with James Blood, the last band in Men's Playhouse before they closed it.
To play, yeah. Wow, incredible. Yeah,
Just a trio: James Blood, Coleman, and John Dana.
James Blood, he's one of the greats. I love the track you guys did with George Adams and I think Cecil McBee. Yeah, revealing. Oof, man, like raw groove and some other stuff on there is just killing. Was that like a working group at that time, or was just that like a record date?
No, that was actually how would you say? That was something like a demo.
Oh, okay.
Try to get something with CBS, which he got, but he didn't want us. He allowed them to decide what he do. That was a mistake, but not necessarily a mistake. But after he got the job, he didn't. That was the end of that.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
We only did that for demo. I didn't even get paid for it, actually.
Oh. And when did you then meet Charles? How did that story happen? Charles Mingus.
Well, when I came back after going to California and made this record, Sea of Nurnen and all that, being in California, wife leaving and all that. So finally, I had a scholarship in Oakland, California, to study for a year because David Durrah said, "Look, let's get away from New York for a while." So I studied there for a year. In the process, we made this record, Sea of Nurnen, and then and while I was in California. And then it was 72. So when I came back to New York, a guy named Marvin Blackman he had made a basement thing. So he said, "Doug, when you come, you got a place. You can stay with me and blah, blah, we share the rent." So when I came back, it was in the Village on 13th Street, right off First Avenue, about a few blocks from St. Mark's Place, where the 5 spot was. So I always went to the 5 spot. So one night, because I always had a band rehearsing on Saturday, because guys like my compositions. I don't know, they come, they like what I did. And so on Saturdays, I always had this thing with 4 horns. And I didn't have guitar and piano, because there's not so many of those guys I like. So one time, the trumpet player with Mingus needed a place to stay. So he came there, and I asked him, said, "Look, man, since you're here, the first week I just went, sort of. And so I said, "Since you're here, can I write a part for trumpet?" He said, "Sure, why not?" So when we did the rehearsal, he said, "Man, the way you write, you should have a job." I said, "Thanks, when?" So Roy Brooks, playing with Mingus, he had bipolar. He was bipolar. Sometime his thing take over, and he was too much for Mingus. So Mingus told him he was looking for a drummer. So the trumpet player, Mingus, made him the musical director. He said, "Man, I found this drummer. I think he would be good." He said, "Bring him in." Like that. So he said, "Yeah, you got the gig." I was like, "What?" I said, "What?" I said, "Okay." So we went over the music for about a half hour. See, when I see with Mingus, Sonny Rollins, and Donald Byrd, I learned everything I could of them. Yeah. So when I went there, we went over the music a bit. So I played the first set. I knew the music basically. Mingus take me outside and say, "Man, nobody ever played my music the first time. Would you consider being in the band?" I did the same thing, 3 swallows. "Yes, sir." But I never told him I knew the music, because nobody ever played my music first. Never said that I had already studied everything. Because Mingus and Monk was my favorite too. And Miles Davis. These were the 3 favorites. Because Miles, I could sing and stuff. With Monk and Mingus, that was it.
Sure.
So that's how I got the gig.
Man,
and I
incredible.
Walked to the gig. I had it for 5 months. I could walk to the gig in 10 minutes.
That's incredible. Oh, yeah. It's one of the greats, But it's funny, you said before you never had an aspiration to become a band leader, right? And how did then the reflections in the Sea of Newman happen?
Oh, the reflections in the Sea of Nurnen when we were in California, David Durrah, he got us into this junior college. He was teaching there. I said, Doug, why don't we put some music together and try to make some? So I thought, I'll write 2 songs that maybe kind of commercial style, maybe with these guys, because I don't like the electric. The Fender Rose piano is the ugliest piano in the world. I said, I'm gonna write something that maybe with him and Otis Harris, who was from Cleveland, I said, well, maybe I could write something that might be where these guys could take it and go and do something with it. That's what happened.
Okay, but you yeah. Sorry, no, go on.
These were with the synthesizers were like these huge synthesizers, not the stuff today. You can't get the sound today. That's why there's music. And we did it in the same studio that Santana and them do their stuff in San Francisco. But to me, I didn't take it. David found the money for the studio, but we didn't get paid for it, so we did it. That was it.
Because you were still like very active. I mean, very active. Yeah, you were. So some of those records you did were like, you know, Folks and Spaces. I mean, Spaces is incredible.
Well,
what you guys did, and
that's my production.
Yeah,
It'll be production.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask you about Spaces. You know, I talked the other day with John Batch, the drummer, and he said he remembers that when you guys played with Steve and Muneer, that you were like the hip thing back then, because you introduced all these constantly shifting meters and odd meters and incredible tunes. And how did that trio with Steve happen, actually? And what's the story behind there? I mean, because you kind of almost discovered Steve in a way, right?
Well, actually, Muneer discovered Steve.
Okay.
Because I was having problem with, I'm a drummer, and guys assume that when I write something, I don't know what I'm hearing, and I don't hear horn player and all that kind of bullshit. So I was finding it difficult to get people to play the things that I wrote, and not put on it, because someone thought that was natural. I say, don't do this. That's not what it is. And also I say, look, the 2-5-1 don't fit my music. You have to study it. This, he doesn't know how to write changes. This wrong. They don't know enough music. So I couldn't find anybody to play the music to my satisfaction that I could say, because I had already had a trio in Europe. People offered me stuff with, I had done something with Marvin Blackman, with Charles Eubanks, but it always got to the point of them thinking of a collective. I don't do collective. I said, look, I hire you, but we all the same. I said, but no, I don't want that, and I'm not willing to do what you want. I don't want no collective. I don't want to have any. I'm the band leader. This is it, because that's confusion. Plus, I don't even want to do what you want to do. So so Muneer, I said, man, I can't find anybody to play this stuff. So he found Steve. So I found a guy who can play this stuff. So I was surprised. I was really surprised. He played it. Damn. Surprised that he could play it and interpret it. He would take the time to work on the music rather than trying to incorporate what he does already. And so I said, wow, this guy is serious. So that's how it started.
Yeah, it's like, it's incredible. I mean, and the rest is history. Also, him joining Dave Holland. And what was he? Did he bring your tunes like Perspicuity and those Brother Tie and World Protection Blues? Yeah,
he brought those to Dave. Because I had written arrangements for the 3 horns. I had written arrangements for those 3 horns. I don't know if it was the same 3 horns for Perspicuity and Brother Tie.
Yeah.
So when he said that, I have pieces for 3 horns. It's like 3 horns, so I just gave them the arrangements. They played the exact arrangements that I did, but they put a little. I was like, why did they do that?
Yeah, exactly.
Not it. I said, well, why? I said, Steve, don't you know better? It's not This sounds like Humpty Dumpty.
Yeah.
But I'm notwithstanding the fact that you have there is something in there, but I don't. When I want that, I write it. I don't want you to add that as natural jazz. I see that as people who come from the jazz school of the play along records, which is I call it Mickey Mouse stuff.
Yeah. But did you have to, like in that trio, did you have to explain a lot to Muneer and Steve how to approach your compositions? Or like, You know,
Well, I
what?
rehearsed, well, I tell you what I did. Why I don't have any money. I rehearsed them till their tongues drew out. And I actually, for Muneer, he didn't even know he was going to play with me because John Betch had a loft. I was living on 13th Street and Avenue C. He was living on 10th between Avenue C and D with a loft. So Muneer was staying there. So I told him he had a 5-string cello. I said, well, you know, I need a bass player, but I need a bass section. I didn't want the cello for the cello sound at all. I didn't even
Yeah.
So I say, well, I need a bass player if you play the bass part. So I rehearsed with him for about almost 6 months.
Oh wow, man.
But I just said, can you do this? And then all of a sudden I said, would you consider playing in a band, you know? And then we were doing that. I had some stuff, and then when I went to Europe, he found Steve, and that's when it began. And then Steve, then Faustina Borelli was first a quintet with Faustina and John Paul Borelli.
Really? Oh wow, man.
Because what I did is like Steve found a guy in down the street from the Apollo Theater on 125th. There was a loft, Olubiji, the name of Olubiji. So Steve found this guy who had this loft, and he had some activities on the weekend. So what I did, which I didn't tell Steve, I paid this guy and paid them a fee. It actually was like, I said, look, make it like you. So I had to finance these bands. So, okay, but really got tired of dealing with Steve shit because Steve is a little strange like me. But anyway, and then Faustina stayed, and we booked it for quartet. She decided she couldn't go for some reason, so it just became a treat.
Ah, interesting. Wow.
So I had to invest in this in order to have a band because I know I couldn't depend on them to go home and practice and come and play this stuff. So I rehearsed them, and then we would play 2 nights a week.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. You mentioned in Europe. I mean, you're in Europe. You've been in Europe now for a really long time. What was the main trigger for you to move to Europe, and how did that influence it?
I said I'd never go to Europe because of slavery. You know, when you don't know shit. My daughter was born in New York. I said, well, wherever comes, it doesn't matter. Somebody, hey, dog, I got a job in Germany. I'm going. Howard Johnson. Daughter come, everything must happen. So my daughter's birth brought me to Europe because I said, well, I got to work. I'm not going to go. I tried taxi driving. That was ridiculous. So I didn't do that. And then I couldn't work having a regular job. Why? Listen, I can't do that, you know, because it doesn't make sense and it's not paying enough. I play music. So when I came to Europe, people in Europe offered me. I didn't ask. When I was traveling with different groups and I did a little trio thing in Heidelberg, 2 ladies said, this beautiful music, you should have be on tour. I said, well, somebody would book me, I'd be on tour. I'll book you. Her name was Ursula Spies and her lady friend. And they were like, she used to be a translator for the university in Heidelberg. She said, well, I'll book you. I said, well, get me 10 gigs and I come. Sure enough, 3 months later, she said, I got 12 jobs. I said, we're on our way. At the same time, I was working with Arthur Blythe, with Olu Dara and Bob Stewart.
Oh, man, really?
Called me the week before I was going, he said, hey, Doug, I got a job at Sweet Basil. I said, okay, 1 week. It's okay. I said, oh, Arthur, that's difficult because I have a job in Europe. And he told me, he said, man, if you do this, I'll try to get you on the record what we doing with CBS. I said, try? And I'm in your band? I'm going to Europe. Because, I mean, when he told me that, I said, you don't run your band. They run your band.
Yeah.
I'm playing with him all the time, and he's going to tell me he doesn't have the decision that he's going to take his band for CBS. I'll try. I don't want to work with you because you don't run your band. They do. I don't want to work with people like that.
So it's kind of like the same as with James, right? James Blood.
With who?
The same with James Blood Almer. That was kind of the same thing then, right? That you guys didn't. That you guys then didn't go to the studio with that group, or?
Well, no, because at the time when we did that recording was quite a distance between that time and what Blood was doing with because he was doing something with Arnett. Arnett was at the rehearsal, getting in the way with his concepts. I ignored him because he would say stupid shit. I mean, he would say things, nice ideas, but I mean, it didn't want no out of context. just make me say, if Onyx was not here disturbing it, we could get into something. Because what he said was shit to me. You know what I mean? I'm at Blood's thing. I know this music, and he's talking. It's like a waste of time. So when we did it, it's like a whole different thing. When Blood and Arnett got together, it was like actually Blood influenced Arnett. In a sense, people don't understand it. So I didn't think anything of it. And when Blood did get the contract, I didn't think that that was so far away. He had already gone into this kind of thing he was doing. So I knew he wasn't going to do exactly that. He asked me to do it with him, but I said, Blood, I don't like loud. And I don't care if it's loud, I won't play. I'll leave the bandstand if it's too loud. I'm not willing to do that. He said, well, why? Some people use earplugs. I'm not going to play with earplugs. I don't even want to play that music. So he always asked me to play. I said, no. So when he did that, I don't really. Sure, the studio tricked him to have Dejanette on the Arthur Blythe. Arthur Blythe don't fit Blood. Blood was on Arthur Blythe record. They don't even fit together. But the record company only sees names and money. They're stupid, they're stupid. So they managed to. And Max Roach was telling me, it's a pity what they're doing with these guys, because he was on the label too. And I'm sitting there saying, well, okay, thumb my finger, say, well, it didn't have much meaning to me because I wasn't willing to do. I don't care how much money they had. I didn't want to play that. I was not willing to suffer to make money because it was suffering to me.
Yeah, sure.
And I like Blood music now. And whenever he would play in Europe, he would always come to the last, by the door. He said, I know you were by the door. I know you were not going to be up here next to the bandstand. Because I like this music. I just couldn't take the volume,
That's funny, man. That's beautiful. Yeah. Oh, Doug, can I ask you to read one of your poems for the end?
A poem. Let me see. One of my poems. Oh, my goodness. Oh, a poem. Oh, I have some new stuff here. A short poem. Oh, goodness. I'm talking about women. I'm always talking love poems. Woman is the greatest thing that ever happened to a man. Let's see. Can't think of a poem. Let me see if I just open the book. Too long. Okay. This is called Children's Plea. It might be good for grown children too. I don't know. Hey, little ones, let's make it fun. The living and doing without being dumb. Some call it stupid because they never checked. The young and doing good never forget. Power is a play by grown-ups who say, the young never know how life is to go. Who knows where the life will go? Being young or old must be calm and bold. So why be stupid saying young or dumb? For life itself never promised fun. We all can do for what we need together in life and through our deeds. So hey, little ones, let's make it fun. The living and doing, we get things done.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. Nice. Cool. Thank you so much, Doug. I will not take more of your time. Thanks so much for sharing some of these stories. I so much appreciated. Nice to hear you talk about your music and creativity. It's beautiful.
I just did a recording in Ljubljana. New recording.
Really?
BU. It's on Bandcamp. It's called BU. A solo.
Oh, solo drums.
No, not drums, voice, sound.
Voice, I mean, like, just you. That's what I mean, like you, drums and...
At a phono studio.
Oh, wow. Well, I have to check it out. Beautiful. How did you approach that?
Huh?
The record? How did you approach the record when you do that? Like that?
How do you mean? It's on Bandcamp.
Yeah, no, I mean, like when you go just into the studio alone with drums and with poetry, like...
Well, I only can play live. I can't play in a booth. So it was all live. But I had, in this studio, I don't usually like headphones, but Dorman had some headphones. He said, try them. I tell you, the best headphones I could hear everything live and headphones. And he said it was some friend of his in Slovenia made these headphones. And so I could use one of them, and I didn't use them all the time, but when I use it, it didn't feel like, because headphones I don't like, and I can't booths and all that. I don't even like studios in general.
Yeah.
So it's all live. And yeah, it's on Bandcamp, the newest release, October.
Oh, beautiful. I'll check it out. I didn't know. Oh, super. Looking forward to hear that. Yeah. Amazing. Well,
So
Dr. Jazz.